The Executive Director of the Women's Economic Agenda Project, my good friend, colleague, and homie, Ethel Long Scott. Yep.
Thank you.
Don't worry about that. Drop in the water.
First of all, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. You know, I was kind of listening as the different leaders kind of spoke. And, you know, we're a very fast-paced country. You know, we're kind of American Idol, kind of, and when Corinne, we first were contemplating this, I said, you know, we're on speed dial on everything in this country. You know, speed dial from falling into poverty to speed dial to voting for which one of them fools we're gonna make millionaires. You know, speed dial on all of this, and we're kind of always kind of hyper. But when we, in our real lives, the lives that we sometimes try to flee from, you know, it's kind of a 24/7 kind of slowed down thing where we have to kind of contemplate what the heck are we facing. And one of the things that I thought about is, you know, it's easy for some of our colleagues to say, you know, we're going to remove barriers. But what our practice is, keep them barriers if you got a disability. Keep them barriers if you speak a different language. Keep them barriers if you come from a different place. But if we're gonna be about a different vision and about recreating a society that is about all people, then we gotta walk the walk and talk the talk, okay? So some people might get a little bit offended by me, and that's all right. Because I'm not here trying to make buddies, but I am here about the serious business of economic security and justice in America. Can I get a shout out on that? You know, we live in a time of incredible inventiveness. We live in a time of great wealth and great disparity, great poverty that is increasing in our country. There's never been a time quite like this in our country of such tremendous opportunities and tremendous disparities. There's nothing quite like this globalization of capitalism. We at the Women's Economic Agenda Project have a focus on making economic security and justice available to large numbers, all people across this globe, and most particularly in this country. We have this little idea that actually poverty is violence. Poverty is violence. We are dedicated to not only elevating the national discourse, but also advancing a vision of a need for economic human rights, dedicated to achieving a few small things: accessible, comprehensible health care for all, from birth to death. We are dedicated to seeing that we are having something called a living wage, not that jive minimum wage. We're talking about a living wage so that we might thrive, not simply survive. We are determined to wrestle from our government, the corporations, the wrestle from our government back from these corporations who have steal our democracy as they dine on our bones. At WEEP, we have been building out of a vision that we started out with, that everybody's human rights are important. And that if you kind of think about it, we were kind of set on a part of that path when Dr. King, more than 44 years ago, began to rattle this nation from its complacency. Rattle this nation from the notion that we could have such huge poverty, and that was 44 years ago, and that we could just sit by and be silent. That we had to begin to build a transformative movement dedicated to a bigger vision, dedicated to building a broader solidarity, that we can't any longer accept the notion of these separate silos, that we are suffering as working people because we have allowed the blindness and complacency. We've almost been asleep for 65 years. That today, what we see in this wonderful Occupy movement is something that is reclaiming, redefining the paradigms of power, and reintroducing to us what our role must be in reshaping this country. A greater vision of a world without poverty. This computer technology that my organization teaches about has, for the first time in human history, can make a world without poverty a realizable goal. Now, sometimes you don't get taught about that in schools like this, or any of our schools. We need to be teachers too. We need to teach these truths about, it's not the robots that are the problem, it's who owns them, how they're used, and the fact that we lack the imagination to apply them to liberating humanity and healing our people and healing our planet. We dare to dream that we can apply those tools to taking care of our people. That's the kind of transformative movement that we're talking about building. Now, today that vision is building towards a different kind of country. Today that vision is really saying that this World Courts of Women is about doing a couple of things. Documenting our plight, that sometimes we kind of want to drink away, sometimes we want to kind of keep the pipe on, sometimes we want to do a whole bunch of things, turning our eyes away from the kind of suffering that we have. But in fact, we need you clean and sober, we need you focused on what is outraging you, and we need you to contemplate that if we are going to get a new social contract that we so desperately need, each one of you and your voice and efforts count and must be directed. That's what we're talking about. That's what these hearings are about. We know that vision becomes a reality when people are willing to step out ahead of conventional wisdom. So we ask you today that you speak out, speak your mind about what you've faced in poverty or what you've seen. Some of the teachers here I've talked to are teaching students with whole families, 8, 9, 10, who live in their damn cars, and then they come here to go to school. This isn't some developing third world country, and I put that in quotes. This is the richest damn country on the face of the earth. We can and must do better. Think about this for a moment. When you go into the sessions or the resolutions, we need to think about, we ain't starting from scratch, and this ain't about no begging session. We got some leaders in this country, in our city, who are developing new paradigms, new strategies for how we might take that power from Wall Street and put it back into our communities so we might thrive. So we might thrive. So finally, as we convene today, I want to remind you about the sacredness of life. That we need a movement that rejects the principles of teaching workers to accept less than that. We need to reject these kind of proposals that say we need to run to Sacramento, go to DC, go to wherever, and pretend that by stealing health care from immigrants, stealing opportunities from women, repressing this group, that we get ahead. That's not vision. That is our enemy playing us. And this is a court where we are rejecting those principles and advancing what we need. And who better than the working class women of this country who have built it, built the wealth, and we see forward. We are today claiming that new vision. We are claiming this next 7 generations forward where we all might thrive, not simply survive. I welcome you and thank you for your time.